Next slide, please. So I'd like to welcome everyone to our Fall Section Leaders Meeting, Service Through Collaboration.
Oh, Jesus.
I'm Carolyn McGregor. I'm the Sections Program Specialist here at the Washington State Bar. And this program is the first of 2 annual meetings designed specifically for Section Executive Committee members to provide important organizational updates and offer relevant tips and resources to assist you in your role as section leaders. Thank you for taking time out of your day to attend, and I'd like to offer a special welcome to all of our new section leaders for this term. We are excited to provide support and work together with you this year. We have a lot to cover today, so we're going to just jump right in. Next slide, please. So this is our agenda today. We're going to be starting off with some words of welcome, then moving on to understanding WSBA and collaborating with leadership. We have a portion on project and event planning, then collaborating with your sections team. We'll finish it off with some explanation and guidelines around our WSBA policy and procedures for purchase and service of alcohol, and then adjourn with commencing our collective path forward. So that's our program. I'd like to introduce Kevin Platchey, our Advancement Department Director, for some words of welcome.
All right. Well, thank you, Carolyn, and good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Fall Section Leaders Meeting. I won't take up too much time this morning, but pretty much anytime I have the privilege to get in front of our section leaders, I like to take a moment to just give you all a huge thank you for your dedicated service to the Washington State Bar Association and to the legal profession as a whole. I don't need to tell any of you probably that the section leaders and the members of the sections are some of the most engaged members of the bar. And among our 29 sections, we have about 9,000 individual members of Washington State Bar who belong to sections and about 15,000 memberships. So some of the individuals belong to more than one. And as the executive committee members, you're really the heart of each section that's driving forward the member benefits that all of you provide to our members. And by doing so, you're advancing not only the mission of your own section, but the mission of the Bar Association itself. And the mission of the WSBA is really to serve the public and the members of the bar, to ensure the integrity of the legal profession, and to champion justice. And through the array of all the member benefits that the sections deliver, and that spans from CLEs to networking events to resources for legal practice, the sections, all of you, enhance the competency and the integrity of the legal profession in Washington, and that directly benefits the public we serve. So we owe you a great deal of gratitude for all of the work you do in your volunteer positions with the sections. And so before we jump into the program, I just want you to know that the staff at WSBA, and particularly the WSBA CLE and section staff, are here to partner with you and to support you in delivering the benefits that you deliver to the members. So we're really in this together, and we've all got the same goal. And that goal is for you all to succeed, because when you succeed, the whole profession reaps the benefits. So again, thank you for your service. It is so much appreciated and so important to our organization. And speaking of service to the WSBA, the next presenter up has dedicated years of service to our organization. Before his election to the Board of Governors, he served for years in leadership on the Access to Justice Board. And after years of service as a governor for District 5, which is in Spokane and Eastern Washington, he stepped up to serve as treasurer of the WSBA, and he did that for a year. And then he was elected to serve as president by the Board of Governors. And we're so grateful that he did. So please give a big welcome to, or join me in giving a big welcome to our WSBA president, Francis Adewale.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Platchey. You're too kind. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. every one of us have a section story to tell. Every one of us at one point or the other have had an opportunity to be part of one section or the other. I can speak for myself. When I came in from a common law country, I didn't go to law school here. And I sat for the bar exam. I passed the bar exam because I come from a common law country, and I practiced law for 7 years in a common law country. So I passed the bar exam, and I'm thinking, okay, which area should I go? I used to do admiralty law. I used to do maritime law. I used to do which section should I go? I didn't know where to go. I didn't know where to practice. So when I was admitted to practice law in Washington, I applied for like 4 or 5 sections. And I was getting materials and information from all of these sections, and I was reading them to determine which area. And one of those sections that I found very interesting was the administrative law section. So I looked at it. I said, I would really love to be to be able to, do regulatory practice and understand that. So I get a lot of materials from them. Then I got a lot of material from criminal justice. And it was interesting for me, for someone that just came into the jurisdiction to practice law, and I didn't know which section to go into. The section enabled me to understand what goes on in each of these areas of the law. And that is why you are so important to the practice of law in our state. Many of you have heard my story. I'm in Eastern Washington. I'm a public defender, but before I was a public defender, I've been very interested in sections. Sections have contributed a lot to the development of law, to the development of bar practice in our states. Many of you are trailblazers in terms of what you have done for the practice of law. And as section leaders, we look up to you to continue to provide leadership. We appreciate all that you do, but I want to tell you one thing in particular today. And I'm putting my name and my email address and phone number in chat. I've double posted it because I want you to be able to reach me directly. If you hear anything about me, that I said something, or there is something that worries you, or there is something you wish I know about, please email me, phone me, or text me. I'm available to you at all times, at any time. I have no restriction. And if I don't have the answer, I know who to call. You know who I'm going to call? His name is Tara Nevitz. He's the executive director of this great organization that we all love. And she does a lot of good job. And I've texted her in the middle of the night. I said, I don't know what to say to this. And she's always available to answer the question. So today, she and I are going to be talking about understanding WSBA and collaborating with leadership. And so let me introduce our executive director, Tara Nevitz. Tara, over to you.
Thank you, Francis. Good morning, everyone. I see lots of familiar faces and names, but for those of you who don't know me, I am the executive director of the Washington State Bar Association. I've been in this role for about 6 years, and I've been with the bar for 11 years now, I think. I originally came to the bar to work with the Access to Justice Board, and my background is in civil legal aid. Before we jump in, I did want to just briefly add my words of appreciation for what you do. And what I really want to highlight is the sense of community that you all create. Francis said that, this is the organization that we all know and love. I wish that were true. I don't know that it's such a beloved organization. And I think that is fine and it makes sense. We're a mandatory bar. People are required to be a part of it. That's not really the right foot to create a community. But I think the sections are where community can form. People choose to be a part of the sections. and they get something out of it. And I really think that that community is critical to people enjoying their careers and being able to serve their communities well. So thank you for being that part of the Bar Association that's creating that community. All right, let's go to the next slide. So again, for some of you, this is going to be a little bit repetitive because I know you know the bar just as well as I do, but we'll go through this quickly and it may be new information for some people. So I mentioned that the Bar Association is a mandatory bar, and interestingly, that's not how it works for all bar associations. Every state does things a little bit differently, but Washington State has a mandatory bar association, which means if you want to practice law in Washington State, you have to join the Washington State Bar Association. On top of that, we're also an integrated bar association. And what I mean by that is we actually started our life as an organization as a voluntary bar. And we have many voluntary bars in Washington State. We have county bars like the Spokane County Bar, the Thurston County Bar, and we have affinity bars like the Lauren Miller Bar Association, the South Asian Bar Association. Those are all examples of voluntary bars. People choose to join and reap a lot of benefits from that, including community. We are an integrated bar in that we carry out all of the regulation of the practice of law on behalf of the Washington State Supreme Court, but we also still have many of those activities and functions that you would expect to see in a voluntary bar. And of course, a lot of that is carried out by you all through our sections. Next slide. This is our mission statement. It covers much of what we do, and it's quite broad. We kind of think about it in three parts. The first part is that we serve the public and the members of the bar. And right there, that's a lot. We really have two primary audiences, and we're always trying to figure out how we can serve both effectively and not have there be tension there. And sometimes it can feel like tension arises, but how we've always tried to resolve this sort of dual purpose in our mission is that we serve the members so that they may serve the public effectively. And that's why a lot of our work is designed around making sure that people understand their ethical obligations, what's going on in the practice of law, and that they're supported to have sort of a healthy practice. Next up is to ensure the integrity of the profession. A lot of this is through our regulatory work, figuring out who can be admitted to the practice of law, carrying out discipline on behalf of the court, but also a lot of our educational activities are focused around ensuring the integrity of our legal profession, as well as our access to justice work. And then finally, to champion justice. And again, this is where a lot of our access to justice work, our work to ensure that the profession is equitable, both for the people who practice in the profession, but also for members of the public that are seeking justice from the courts. All right, next slide. A lot of these slides are kind of designed to give you a sense of like how vast and diverse the organization is. Even though we're not that big, sometimes I think of us as like a 3M or a Procter & Gamble in the sense that like there's so many different little things going on. And I have this elephant here because I often think of that parable where there are some unsighted people and they're touching different parts of an elephant, and each of them has a different sense of what this creature is based on what part they're touching. And I sometimes think of the bar a little bit like that because we have, you know, basically, we have people who are volunteering in the discipline system as hearing officers, or maybe special disciplinary counsel performing the function of a prosecutor. And then we also have people on our editorial advisory committee who are helping with our beautiful award-winning magazine. And those are very different experiences. They're different cultures and different teams and different work. So this is just to give you a sense of all the different entities that we have at the Bar Association. Next slide. All right, Francis.
All right, thank you, Idinevich. When I joined the board, every year each president determines what is going to be priorities for them. And it just rankles me that we have new strategic goals every year. And so I kept complaining. And I think that Idinevit was also worried about that. And she said, what can we do about this? And we all came together. So for the very first time this year, we decided to move away from yearly goals. We've set a 3-year strategic goals. For the very first time in the history of this organization, we're going to move away from the idea of strategic goals every year determined by whoever is the president. We're now having this strategic goal for the next 3 years, 2026 to 2029. Am I right? Yes. Okay. So that's the plan. These are the strategic goals for WSBA in the next 3 years. Now, if you see anything there that jump as you, it's probably going to be access to justice. It's probably going to be emerging technologies. It's probably going to be belonging, the culture of our practice, of the law practice in Washington State, and how to make it better. And then, of course, WSBA governance structures and how we can, what we are doing. For last year also, we have a governance committee. We set up a governance committee to look at that, that last slide where everything is all over the map. We're trying to see how we can do things better. Your Bar Association hasn't forgotten you. We are here. All the mission that is that is highlighted in that mission, all the goals highlighted in that mission to serve the public, to be the champion for justice, to do all of those things are included in these strategic goals. And please, this is what we're going to be measured by. This is what members are looking forward to for us to do. And please, as sections, if you feel like you want to be part of achieving these goals, please talk to your members about it. And personally, I will appreciate it, and Idinevit will appreciate it. Idinevit.
Thank you. I know we're trying to catch up a little bit on time, so I'm not going to walk through these in detail, but I do want to tell you a little bit about something about the image that I put here and how it relates to the goals. And I also want to point out, any of you who really love strategic planning or do a lot of this in your own work, you might be looking at these and saying, like, these aren't goals. These aren't SMART goals. These are just like broad, like, statements of like aspiration. And I think you would be right. I think, the Board of Governors is a policy setting body. And so these goals are not, they're by design, they are somewhat broad. And the idea is that all the different entities of the Bar Association and the staff, we're all working on the specifics, sort of what are the specific strategies we're going to employ, how can we measure them, what are our deadlines, et cetera. And the reason why we have this picture, I don't know how many of you all are rowers. I am not, sadly. But we did have a facilitator a few years ago who was a rower, and he introduced us to this concept of the power 10. And he said, when you're in a race, you can't go full on the whole time, but every once in a while, the coxswain will call for a power 10. And that means everybody's going to go for 10 strokes as hard as they can. And the idea there is that there's a lot that we do at the Bar Association, and it is all important. The fact that we've highlighted some strategic goals does not mean that the other work we do is not important or critical, but these are areas where we think at this moment in time, we need a power 10. We need to give them a little more oomph. because, you know, there is a pressing threat or there is a pressing opportunity. And so that's really how we're approaching those. And I want to echo President Adewale in inviting you. I know many of you are already doing work that advances these, but I invite you to take a look at them and think about if there are if you would also like to focus on some of these areas in the years to come. Okay, next slide. So, working with the Board of Governors. From time to time, you all are going to have proposals that you want to bring to the board. We do a lot of review of charters, section charters or section bylaws. There might be other things that you want to bring to the board. So you can find on the website the board meeting schedule. I've highlighted there for you the materials deadline. So if you want to bring something to the board, this is the deadline you need to meet for each meeting. However, the work of getting something to the board begins long before the materials deadline. We have a process that involves making sure that the matter is appropriate for the Bar Association to take up, and every proposal that comes to the board gets a legal review for risk, an equity review, as well as a fiscal review. And so getting those reviews done can take time. I want to encourage you to reach out to Carolyn early and often when you're thinking about bringing something to the board, because she can really help you navigate those processes and make sure that we can get what you want done timely so that we're not holding you up. Next slide. All right, Francis.
Thank you, Idinevich. These are your board liaison, 2 sections. And I really want to encourage you to work with them. This is an appeal. I'm begging, I'm pleading with you to please, if there is anything you needed from the board or that requires input from the board, please go through them, let them know. One of the things I'm trying to do this year is to have our board liaison present on what is going on in the sections to us. I'm going to be asking governors to please, that are liaisons to all the sections, will you give a 2 or 3 minutes feedback on what is going on in the sections? So this is something that the governors want to be there, the sections want to work with them, so that there will be in back and forth, so that we will be able to know what is going on, how we can be of help. I don't want us to be responding to crisis. I want us to be able to know ahead of time if something is coming up. And liaisons are the best place, folks to be able to ensure that there is a bridge between the Board of Governors and the sections. Thank you.
All right, thank you all so much. You have President Adewale's contact information. Mine is available on the website, and I'll drop it in the chat as well. We really are open and eager to hear from you at any time, and thank you again for the great amount of time you're taking away from your family, your hobbies, and your work to do this volunteer work. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tara and Francis, for joining us this morning. Next slide, please. So we're going to be moving on to project and event planning from initiation to evaluation. We have Paris Erickson here this morning. She's our manager of volunteer engagement, and she'll be presenting a new project planning framework, which might be of use to you all as you're working through your programs and projects this year. Welcome, Paris. Next slide.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm always so looking forward to the opportunity to see our section leaders. So thank you so much for all you do, and it's exciting to be here. As Carolyn mentioned, my name is Paris Erickson. I'm the manager of volunteer engagement here at the Bar Association. I've worked with a lot of different entities, including sections. And again, so it's always a pleasure being here. What I'm going to be introducing to you today is two frameworks regarding decision-making and project management. It's really not something you need to worry about too much, and we aren't asking you to change your processes or your workflows. However, we wanted to share these concepts with you, as you will likely hear staff using this language and navigating these frameworks, including the sections team and probably some of the CLE team, as these concepts begin to kind of take root within our organization. So it's something that you can be aware of, and in fact, it might be helpful for you as well. Internally, for the past year, we've been looking into decision-making and project management as part of our operational priorities, really looking into these two areas to improve decision-making and how we do projects, bring clarity to those processes to ensure high-quality, well-informed decisions and projects that hopefully are more successful. So we looked into a lot of different types of projects and how decisions are made within the organization, and kind of have settled on these two frameworks and language to help shape those, and again, bring that clarity and consistency to those concepts going forward. So I'm going to share these with you at kind of a high level. If you'd like more information, you can connect with the sections team or myself directly. More information will be provided throughout the year to, again, just share these tools and this language as staff will be using them, but you also might find them helpful in your work as section executive committee members. So this is the first one. It's around decision making, and this framework is called RAPID. We did not create it, but we have adopted and adapted a bit of it for the WSBA context. Thank you for moving the slide. And RAPID is a mechanism for assigning and clarifying roles in a decision-making process. It is adaptable, and it can be used for small decisions or big decisions, for small teams, large teams, departments, or the organization. And it helps support organized and effective decision-making. It's a shared vocabulary for identifying and discussing and executing the roles in a decision-making process. It's intended to integrate with and support rather than replace our existing processes and workflows. Through the implementation of this framework, we're hoping to increase transparency, enhance accountability, improve stakeholder buy-in, involve more expertise, support better decisions, and improve communication and collaboration. So the roles within that are here on the slide, and just to kind of cover them at high level, as you can see, it's an acronym for those different roles within a decision. The R would be the recommender, and that's an individual or individuals who are identifying the best course of action or the best solution. The recommendation is typically 80% of the work, because you're looking into all possibilities and you're gathering input and expertise into that recommendation. An agreeer, the A, evaluates the proposed solution and provides given expertise within their realm of expertise. The P is for perform, and that's the person or persons who will be kind of carrying out or implementing that decision. I is input, and this is the opportunity to gather input into the recommendation. Input doesn't have to be necessarily taken in, but there should always be an opportunity to gather input. And then D, of course, is decision, making that final decision, making that final call. That could be something within your executive committee, or it might ultimately be that the decision you're working on needs to go somewhere else for the decision to be final, let's say the Board of Governors, for example. As I mentioned, it's an acronym for the roles, so you can kind of easily remember those roles, but it is not the flow or the order in which those roles happen. And in fact, that would not help you. Thank you for changing the slide. It's not really intended to be well-paced, although it can simply be a conversation around who is our decider, and let's make sure we connect with them and get that decision. But it can help you break down what the recommendation is, and what's the question being asked, and what's the decision that you're needing. So here you can see the roles placed in a typical workflow, where the recommendation or recommender is gathering input and agreement before moving that to the decide phase, and then of course the performing phase. So for example, if a section executive committee wanted to make a more substantive change to their bylaws, maybe they're wanting to consider something around bringing in new members at the executive committee level, or something else, you might maybe want to gather input as you're developing those bylaw recommendations. Maybe there's one or two drafters that are working on those amongst the executive committee, and you would bring those recommendations, those bylaw changes to the full executive committee, kind of get agreement that that's what you'd like to propose, and then that moves to the decider, which, as we all know with bylaws, is the Board of Governors. So that's kind of an example you can think through with this workflow. I'm going a little fast and I'm going to keep going, but again, if you'd like more information, happy to share afterwards. So the next concept that we really wanted to kind of unpack a little bit more was projects and project management within the organization. Project management is the practice of planning, organizing, and executing tasks needed to turn an idea into a deliverable. Typically, projects have three characteristics. There's a finish line, you're creating something new, and they provide a benefit even if it's not necessarily right away. The key to navigating WSBA's varied and sometimes complex projects is to understand that the same project cycle can be applied to most, if not all, projects. So by following the cycle that you see here, those working on a project, whether staff or volunteers, can better develop, manage, document, and communicate projects as they progress towards success. So this project cycle, which takes a lot of best practices in the field of project management, and again, adopts and adapts them for our organization, creates a shared vocabulary for identifying, discussing, planning, and executing the phases of a project from start to finish. With the implementation of this framework and vocabulary, we're hoping to increase efficiency, foster collaboration, improve accountability, resource allocation, risk mitigation, and ensure projects stay on track and within budget. So as you can see, the phases here, and again, this is very high level, but the initiation phase is you have an idea, you want to act on an idea, so you have a proposal. Planning is this is how we are going to act on it. What are the tasks? What are the things we need to do to move this forward? And let's map those out and list those down. What's our project roadmap? Implementation is now we're following that roadmap and we're moving forward towards execution and engagement, which is now others can act on it. And then evaluation and monitoring. How did that project go? What could be done better? Are we going to do it again? And what changes do we want to make? Next slide, please. So for the fun part, or I think it's fun, is these two concepts, as you might imagine, can interact very well and actually naturally do so. And rapid or a decision kind of creates a checkpoint between the different phases of a project cycle. So they can work together to navigate the inevitable decisions necessary throughout a project. It's not intended to be overwhelming. This can look a little overwhelming, but rather this is just a visual aid to kind of support those natural decision checkpoints throughout a project. We're excited to launch and use this new vocabulary. And again, you will likely start hearing it from staff. But I do encourage you to take a look at it and see how it could perhaps support your executive committee decision-making as well as your own projects. Throughout the coming year, we'll have additional tools and resources to help guide you through, identifying the folks that you'd like to get input on from your decision, let's say, or developing your project roadmap. I think a great example for an executive committee for this diagram would be your CLE development. So if somebody has an idea about a CLE, that's kind of your initiation. There's a decision point at which everyone agrees, yes, let's move forward on that particular topic. And then you're moving forward to your planning phase. Okay, what do we need to do to get this CLE up and going? What are our tasks and timelines? Let's put those all together and let's assign roles and get that plan going forward. And then we're moving on that plan and we're checking things off and contacting the faculty members and working with CLE staff. And then of course you're having the event, you're hosting it, it's in the place where it's going and people are attending it and they're engaging with your work. And then of course you're evaluating that at the end. Is this something we want to do again? What changes would we like to make? Or are we happy with the way it is and maybe we want to shift directions in the future? So that can be kind of a way to think through this. Next slide, please. Okay, so that's it from me, but I do encourage you to reach out to the sections team or myself if you do have any other questions. Happy to chat further or expand on some of this if you think that would be helpful for you. So thank you again for the time on your agenda, and it's lovely to see you all. Thanks.
Thank you, Paris. And we will take a moment for questions at the end of this segment. So if you have specific questions for Paris right now, we'll make time for those. So go ahead and you can put them in the chat right now as well if you have any. We'll come back to those at the end of this segment. So we're going to take some of what Paris was introducing and apply that to kind of how this comes into play when you're sitting down and doing this work and when you're engaging with the sections team and me to help navigate the different stages of the process and what's necessary to bring it into fruition. Next slide, please. So for any project or program that you are initiating, and some examples would be, an event, writing contest, scholarship grant programs, bylaws amendments. Key is bringing me in early in the process. And the advantages to doing so is that I can help you, find templates, models. With 29 sections, there's a good chance that one of our other sections has either started this process or completed a process, and that there are models or templates that I can offer you to help with efficiency, to give you a starting point. So that's one benefit to that. The other is that in each of these cases, there is a review process that we go through. And my role is to help facilitate that process. So to take your materials, your ideas, and to work with our legal team, with our equity and justice team, and the finance team to provide feedback on that that you may not be thinking about or aware of. And so we can provide those comments and feedback to make your program or your proposal stronger, to make sure that it is in alignment with GR12 and germaneness concerns, that you're thinking about all the budget impacts and that type of thing. So that's an important part of any process of a new project or program. And then also I can provide input on budget considerations. I will say that when we're working with section budgets, we're aware that your team often turns over to some extent from year to year. And so when you are creating your budget for the following fiscal year, you may not be aware of what might come up in the following year or what plans the new executive committee may want to undertake. And so you do your best to create a budget from what you know that spring. Come the next year, there may be new folks on the team with new ideas, new proposals. And so you always have to consider, well, how would that impact our budget? This budget that we already had approved, we're working with now. Where is the room to work with this? Does it fit in with what we planned? If it doesn't fit in, how do we work with that? And there are ways to work with it that I'll come to in our fiscal tips later on. But so I can help you track that and be thinking of everything as you're getting started on a project or program. Next slide, please. So Our one way of looking at how to apply this project planning is to look at one example. And so if we look at event planning, which is something that I know most of you will do during the term year, it's a good example of how we can break down these different stages and look at what's involved in each stage. So when we're talking about the initiation stage, this is when you're thinking about, you know, what is the purpose of the event? What type of event is it? How are we going to format it? What will it look like? Who are we inviting? Who is the program intended for? What budget are we working with? And what's our timeline? Next slide, please. So when we're looking at the types of events, we have your executive committee meetings. Many sections do retreats each year, annual meetings with your general membership, receptions and socials, networking events, and then all of the CLE programming. And then who is your target audience? General section members, new young lawyers. Do you do law student outreach? Anything intended for the general public or a program that might impact the general public? And then we talk through some of the budget issues. And again, if you don't have enough planned in your budget already, how do you go about the process of allowing or getting approval for the use of unbudgeted funds? Timing is really important. Things can, we're all busy and time flies by in the term year very quickly. And so at the very beginning, setting up your timeline, making sure you have time allotted for the review processes. And I'll talk a little bit about the next stage about the different review processes for contracts and for letters of agreement and that type of thing. There's also review needed for logos and graphics. So looking at that timing at the very beginning and making sure that you are allowing sufficient time is critical. Next slide, please. Okay, so then we move on to the planning stage. We're identifying partners, obtaining proposals, identifying potential sponsors. Next slide, please. So looking at this stage, thinking about, are you working with WSBA? Are you working with WSBA CLE? Are you engaging with a non-WSBA partner, whether that's CLE, whether that's using a firm's space as your venue? Might be a sponsorship situation in either direction. Looking at proposals and contracts. So are you reaching out to several venues, for example, for a section retreat? Looking at several venues, seeing what they offer, getting proposals from the venues. Who are you going to use for your catering? And this will come into play later in this program as well. If you're going to have alcohol at the event, who is going to be covering the expenses for that? What is the nature of the event? How does the fiscal policy with reference to alcohol, how does that come into play? If you're having any entertainment, whether it's activities at a retreat or whether it's music at an event, thinking about what contracts or agreements you need there. Thinking about logistics. Is it a hybrid event? What types of audiovisual needs will you have in that case? And then sponsors, if you want to have a sponsor for alcohol, or if you're having a sponsor just for a reception, more general sponsor. So all of these things come into play with planning, so you can actually start putting your ideas into practice, getting the needed information before you can actually start implementing. So next slide, please. Okay, then we move into implementation. For purposes of this example, I'm combining the implementation and execution stages. Execution, a lot of that might be just, on site, and that maybe involves staff a little bit less in this case, unless it's a CLE program. But that's also, the actual happening of the event and your members' engagement with the event. So we're just combining that for this particular presentation. So in the implementation phase, we have contract and agreement review process. We have communication, publicity, marketing considerations. We need to think about a photo release if you're hoping to use any photos or video from your event. Next slide, please. So for contracting and payment, we'll come back to that in the next slide. That's a big consideration, so it deserves its own slide. So we'll pause on that. Communication and marketing, think about what means you would like to use. WSBA offers e-blasts. You have your section webpage. There's section social media if you have created accounts, and there's also the opportunity to push it out on the WSBA social media pages. Your listserv, networking through outside partners. So you want to be thinking about all of those different options and opportunities. And also in all of these, who are your contact people? Who is out there from your section making these different steps happen? Who's in charge of each role? And that's really important too for your communication with staff, with me, if it's a CLE, with our CLE team, so that we know who we're communicating with, who I'm directing, the review comments to make that much more efficient. So be thinking about, who are you delegating for each of these roles so we can communicate best. Photo video release. Most likely, if you're planning on this, not most likely, you will need to have a release. So if you're hoping to take videos, this is something to think about in advance. And you might want to have a sign-in sheet when people come in, or you might want to have something in the RSVP so that they can indicate whether they're comfortable or not. But think about that in advance, because after the fact, it's going to be much harder to get in communication with folks and do that work as a follow-up. So planning ahead for this is key as well. Next slide, please. Okay, so contracts and agreements. For the majority of items that you'll be working with and planning your events, you will need some type of agreement. The exception would be, say, a restaurant that is maybe doing catering, and they might offer you, an estimate of their services, but they don't actually require you to place a deposit or sign anything with them. So those do exist. But a lot of venues will have the contract. If you're working with a sponsor, you will want a letter of agreement, or if you are offering someone an honorarium, a speaker an honorarium for their, as a thank you for their services, you'll want to have a letter of agreement with them so they know what you're offering and what its intention is. If you are working on a CLE with an outside party, you'll want a memorandum of understanding. Generally, the MOU is for situations where you're sharing revenue or sharing expenses. So it's some type of fiscal sharing arrangement. With an MOU, you're going to have both parties sign the document. For a letter of agreement, generally, it's signed by WSBA leadership, and then it's returned to the other party for their review and agreement. Any of these documents need to be signed by WSBA staff and reviewed by WSBA staff. So when you are arranging to have these contracts drawn up by the external party, you'll want to include the contact point as WSBA staff as contact point, and that will be, either Kevin Platchy or Tara Nevitt, depending on the overall amount of the contract. So please check in with me before you provide that contract, and I can indicate, which staff member should be listed as our contact. We need to step process on our end. We first put it through our general counsel to make sure that the terms of the contract are agreeable. And so there may be some points in the contract where WSBA is asking for an edit, an amendment that will make it, more favorable to us and that we can agree to. So if that's the case, that's going to take a little extra time. We'll send you those comments and the review, either you or I, depending who's engaging with the venue at this point. We'll send those to the venue and ask for them to review. Will they agree? Will they agree to parts of it? At that point, it comes back to us, and then we'll go through our full review, which goes through the various manager levels and the final signer. So that's why we ask you to allow 7 to 10 business days is safe. If it's a new venue that we haven't worked with before, it's more likely that we'll have edits. So that's some other consideration. If it's a venue that we've used numerous times, likely we won't need the longer length of that review time, but that's a consideration as well when you're working in your timeline. Sometimes it can turn around quickly, but that just depends on staff capacity and whether there are edits required or not. So you really want to build in that full amount of time. And the other thing that you would like, or that we would like you to provide to us when you submit the contracts or letters of agreement, is your estimate for the full event. Because part of what we look at is, does it match with your budget? Do you have the right amount in your budget? Can you cover this, or do we need to talk about a budget memo and using unbudgeted funds? So that's really helpful to have at that same time. Okay, next slide, please. So then after the event occurs, we get to the evaluation stage. And this is something that I'm not sure a lot of sections do. And I think for busy professionals, it might be, okay, phew, we got that done, on to new work, right? I mean, it can be hard to fit in this step, but I think it's really valuable to take that time to debrief as the organizers or as a committee and talk about what worked and what didn't work, and memorialize that session and those comments so that you can review to it, and so that it's there for folks in the following year. I know a lot of the events that you do are things that you do on a yearly basis, and so being able to provide your debrief feedback to your group the following year can really help them jump in with a little more information and hopefully start at a better place than you were the year before. The other piece of evaluation and the wrap up is making sure that all the expenses are paid, right? Oftentimes there's a lingering balance. So making sure you have the invoices, final invoices, looking those over to make sure that it matches with what your experience was, and that you're not being charged for something that you didn't get served or anything like that. So that's another piece as well. And you'll want to do that hopefully, within 30 to 60 days. Yeah, so that's the end of that. I think this next slide. Make sure I didn't miss anything here. Yeah, I mean, you can, send an evaluation out from your section members every now and then to see was the event what they were hoping for? What was their experience with it? And that can often inform the work you do the following year. So highly recommend spending some time in the evaluation stage. Next slide. Okay, questions. Whoops. So that wraps up my overview of event planning. And again, the sooner that you can pull me in, the better. And hopefully I can help make your process as efficient as possible. Are there any questions for either Paris or me? Okay, if anything comes up over the next few days or few weeks, please do reach out to us. and we'd be happy to support you. Thanks so much. Next slide. Okay, collaborating with your sections team. I'm also going to take just a moment here to encourage you to stretch a little bit, to take some deep breaths. We're about halfway through, and I know it's a lot of information. So if it helps just to get out of your seat, walk around a little bit, please, by all means, do. We want you to be comfortable. So in this section, we're going to be talking about a number of things as you're working with your sections team. I'm going to introduce you to a number of our team members as we go through. So when we get to a section with a new team member that you haven't met in this program, they will introduce themselves to you and what their role is on the sections team. So starting off with next slide, the role of the staff liaison and the rest of the sections team. So my title is Sections Program Specialist. I'm serving as the staff liaison to all of our 29 sections, and each entity at the WSBA has a staff liaison. So I am your staff liaison. My role is to attend your executive committee meetings as I am able. Unfortunately, I often have conflicts with other section executive committee meetings, and lunchtime is a popular time to meet. So there are certainly days of the month where I have to kind of bounce back and forth or alternate months to join your meetings. But I do try to join as many meetings as I can to serve as your kind of in-house resource on the spot and to provide you with any timely WSBA updates. I also can provide guidance in navigating all of the policies and processes that are part of working with WSBA as an entity. I can assist with event planning, make sure you're getting the right contracts. We talked about this, the different documents that are necessary to have in place. Can definitely help you navigate all of that, providing templates, and even drafting templates if it seems too daunting. So I'm available to help with that. I can work with you on your bylaws amendments, any project proposals, new scholarships, new communications. So if you're starting a newsletter, you're starting a writing competition or anything like that, I'm available to help as you're getting started on those. And then I can also help you with budget-related requests, ranging. I do all the payment arrangement for your section expenses as well. The rest of the sections team that you're going to meet in this program, they assist with sections communications, working through our different channels to get your information out to your members, and maintaining section records, rosters, activities, programs, agendas, minutes, all of that. The team administers and supports your annual projects like elections, budget plannings, annual reports. You hear from us a lot when those times of the year when we're needing to work with you on these different deliverables. And the team hosts semi-annual informational meetings as this one, and also a discussion series for section leaders. Next slide, please. Noah, take it away.
Hi, I'm Noah Vetke. I am the section's program coordinator. I'm Carolyn's right hand. I do a lot of the website stuff. I do a lot of the extra background stuff for sections, and one of the big things I do is I proctor the elections for executive committees. I just want to point out really quick that 9 times out of 10, you're going to contact Carolyn for any questions that you have. If it's a website thing, go ahead and feel free to contact me directly, and I can help you with that. But like I said, 9 times out of 10, you're going to want to contact Carolyn about all this information. So I just want to talk about really quick open meetings policy and best practice. This is excerpted from the WSBA bylaws. All meetings of the BOG or other bar entities, which is sections, must be open and public to and all persons will be permitted to attend any meeting except as otherwise provided in these bylaws or under court rules. Basically, just like BOG meetings, all executive committee meetings of sections are open to the public. And they generally need to be, I say generally because there are time constraints and things like that that happen, but they do need to be posted ahead of time. So we want to ask two things of your sections as you're doing these things. Please send us the agendas early if you can. That way we can put the agenda on the website, on your section's calendar with the meeting itself. And then afterwards, please send us your meeting minutes draft so that we can archive it. And then as soon as it is finalized, please send those as well, or I mean approved, please send those as well so that we can get those up on your web pages as well. As it says in the slide, meetings of all minutes, except for executive sessions, must be recorded, and approved minutes will be open to the public inspection upon request. And I just want to say really quick, there are two ways that that happens. One, either your section has set up a meeting minutes page, or we have them posted in your calendar on the specific events. So, thank you.
You, Noah. I'm going to talk about fiscal tips a bit, and I made some references to these in the event planning portion of the program. So when you are using section funds, how do you know how it should get paid for? So oftentimes, if it's something that is section related and not your personal travel, meals when traveling to a section event, it's something that WSBA can pay for and oftentimes prefers to pay for directly. So for example, group meals, catering contracts at event or reception, venue contracts and invoices. Those are times when we like to pay the vendors directly. When you are traveling to a section event, or if you are making a small purchase, for example, a thank you gift for a speaker, you can make that purchase on your own with your personal funds, and then you can seek reimbursement. When you are considering a section expense on behalf of the section, so for example, not your own personal travel or lodging at a section event, you need to seek pre-approval to ensure full reimbursement. So for example, a thank you gift to a speaker, or maybe it's a section member who's leaving after 10, 20 years of service, and you'd like to give them a special thank you gift. The fiscal policy has guidelines as to how much can be sent for gifts of that nature. So for example, if you are considering a gift amount that exceeds that amount in the fiscal policy, then you would need special approval to make sure that you can get fully reimbursed. Because if it's not pre-approved, we cannot guarantee that you would get reimbursed beyond what's already stated and covered in the fiscal policy. So it's always a good idea to check in with me, make sure that you get the pre-approval so that if you are seeking reimbursement, you can get the full reimbursement, because we definitely want you to not take on extra expense that isn't necessary, but we want to make sure that we can do that for you, but we need to know in advance. When you are thinking about reimbursements, please do become familiar with the fiscal policy. The guidelines on page 2 of our expense form do lay out the different per diems and hotel rate guidelines and travel guidelines excerpted from the fiscal policy. So that's a really good guideline when you are completing your report. Also, when you're planning your travel. So if you know that you're going to have to fly, arrange for your own lodging to travel to a section event as a volunteer. Say you're the only volunteer who lives in Spokane and the event's going to be in Seattle. You should review page 2 of the fiscal, not the fiscal policy, but of the event form, the expense form, to make sure that you are making your arrangements in alignment with fiscal policy so that you can be fully reimbursed. If you have a situation where, you know, the hotels in the area where you're traveling have rates that are, you know, well above what's listed on the back of our expense form, check in with me. I can try to get approval for you in advance. So again, that we can ensure that you can get full reimbursement. On any expense that you come across, if you're asking for an exception or approval for something that doesn't meet those guidelines that are on the expense form or in the fiscal policy, you can always ask us to consider those expenses, because leadership will consider reasonableness in any given situation. So if you provide, you know, rationale, context, setting, what was the purpose of the expense, and you're able to provide all of your receipts, leadership will consider, is this reasonable? And so that is very much context dependent. So you can always ask, provide as much information as you can, and it will be considered. Again, if you're able to do that in advance, that's great, because then you know going in. But if you weren't able to, and you're submitting your expenses after the fact, please do just provide as much information as could be helpful when we're considering the request. We also do have the affidavit, which is up to $75 per day of expenses. If you have lost your receipt, you're able to expense up to $75 per day. And also the meal per diems. So if you've lost your meal receipts, you can expense up to the per diem amount for the meal. So if you don't have receipts, the guidelines on page 2 are much more critical, because we can't really use those in considering reasonableness. So there is a cap if you don't have your receipts. So just please do keep your receipts. And this is an itemized receipt that shows that you've made the payment. In every case possible, it's recommend keeping those receipts. Next slide, please. Okay, so I talked a couple times about this idea of unbudgeted expenses. So when you've planned your budget for the following year, now you're in that year, you're making decisions about your programs and projects and activities, and you realize that, we want to do this thing, but we don't have enough in our planned budget to cover it. So what do you do? So if the expense that you'll incur that was above that budgeted amount is less than $500 over the amount, it's okay. You can go ahead and make that expense. But if it's going to exceed $500 more than what you have budgeted, that's when you'll need to create a budget memo. And in that case, there are some very specific considerations as to whether we can approve. And we really, as the director of finance, and oftentimes also the executive director, that can approve this request. And what's considered is your year-to-date expenses, your overall fund balance, the amount of the proposed expense proportional to your total expense budget. So there are some very specific things that are considered when you're making that request. We do have a memo template that's available, and I can certainly help you with that. And again, I can help you draft it too if I have the information. So I'm very available to help you through this process when it comes up, or if it comes up. We're also working on a guide that might make this a little bit more understandable. It's a bit confusing, and there's a lot of different considerations. So I'm hoping to have something out, hopefully sometime this year, that will be a visual aid as you're walking through this process. But in the meantime, please do come to me as soon as you have a sense that you need to write a memo, and I will help you through the process. Next slide. And then here are some important resources that you can refer to. We'll be sending materials out after the meeting, and there's lots of valuable information. There are a few videos that you can use as well to walk you through expense reimbursements. So please avail yourself of these resources. Next slide, please. Okay, the Section Leaders Noon Discussion Series. We've been doing this for a few years now, and this is lunchtime, hour-long informal sessions. We've been aiming for 2 to 3 per year. I think we've been steadily doing 2 per year. And it's an opportunity for section leaders to share wisdom, successes, and challenges on topics most relevant to section leadership. These are facilitated by WSBA staff and or fellow section leaders. We've had a number of really wonderful panels featuring section leaders. I have 2 folks in the audience here who are going to share their testimonials as to the value of attending these discussion series. I will share that we have had, small attendance with robust discussions, but I think it'd be great to hear from some folks who have come as to what value they've gotten from this. And so, Michael Harris, are you with us today? Michael's not here. And Michael, if you're here, I will come back to you. We have Seth Milstein from the construction law section.
Yeah, I'm here, and thanks for having me.
Seth.
I just finished up my term and attended a few of these during the course of the year. Just an awesome resource. It's really an asset just to learn a lot more. I know in the meetings I attended, we kind of figured out some of the problems that a lot of sections would like to have, such as how to spend our money better. And I guess that is a brag. There's no humility to that. But someone had mentioned a Mariners game. We did that. Turned out really, really, really well. It was really seamless with Carolyn's help in terms of processing the credit card information, getting the tickets digitally. I was kind of concerned about that just because there's a lot of moving pieces when there's, in this case, almost 50 people who attended, and we got to post a little message up on the board. And then right after that, it was the first day after the All-Star break. The Mariners just went on an epic tear. And so we are, as a section, being thanked for that, apparently. I'm not sure by who, but that's just in my head. So yeah, we learned a lot, shared a lot of good ideas. There was a breakout room in one of the events that I attended. And we got to talk a little bit about attendance, which is, I think, always an issue. And I mentioned to just in passing to the group I was with that we implemented in our bylaws a pledge of allegiance, which sounds very North Korean and sort of is dictatorial, but we really wanted to hold people's feet to the fire in terms of making them attend, because we had a real problem the year before, which is just horribly unfortunate. We couldn't conduct business. So shared that with the members, what we put into the bylaws. And really, it just shores up, I think, how valuable Carolyn and her team are as an asset. And it really helped the year go seamlessly, and super grateful. So I could ramble for another probably 3 hours extolling the virtues, but I've been told to keep it short, and I'm already over my time. So thanks for having me.
Thanks so much, Seth. I think Michael was unable to join, so maybe he can share something in our materials that we send out. So past topics for these sessions have been executive committee member recruitment, engaging your young lawyer liaison, section member recruitment, and executive committee member onboarding. We would love your ideas, because these sessions are designed for you. And so we want to cover the topics that will be most helpful. And so hearing from you is critical so that we can continue to do that. So just a couple ideas we had are, for future programs would be mentorship programs, marketing and communication strategies. We do want to hear from you. So as we're continuing the program, if you could just put any ideas into the chat. You can also, of course, always send them to me in email. But if you want to just record some here as you're just thinking about this, well, what would I attend a discussion series about? What would be valuable to me and to my section? So please, would love to hear ideas for this. Okay, next slide. Okay, Vanessa Sweeney, it's one of our team members, is going to introduce this topic. And Vanessa, if you could also introduce yourself, that would be great.
Yes, of course. Thanks, Carolyn. Hi, everyone. I'm Vanessa Sweeney. I'm program coordinator with the Member Services and Engagement team. I work closely with Carolyn and Noah with sections, mostly behind the scenes. So at this past July BOG meeting, the Washington Members Committee, formerly known as the Washington Young Lawyers Committee, proposed bylaw amendments to better align its structure and outreach with the evolving needs of our new members. The proposal was approved by the BOG, and as a result, as of October 1st, the WSBA bylaws have been updated to define a new member as an active WSBA member, including lawyers, LLTs, and LPOs within their first 10 years of admittance to the bar. There are 3 parts this impacts: the at-large governor, also what was formerly known as the Young Lawyer Liaison to Sections, which is now the new member liaison, and of course changing the name of the WYLC to the Washington Young Lawyers Committee to the Washington New Members Committee. I will now hand off to Julianne, who will discuss what this means for sections and next steps.
Thank you, Vanessa, and good morning, everyone. My name is Julianne Unite, and I am the Member Services and Engagement Manager at the bar. I've been here now almost 11 years, started first as a sections leader staff liaison for about my first 3 years, and now I have the pleasure of leading the amazing sections team you see here today with supporting you all with your programs. So as Vanessa mentioned, there are some next steps that do have a direct impact on sections. And so wanted to walk you through that and so that you're aware of what's to come over the next few months. So because the bar bylaws have been amended, particularly changing the name young lawyer to new member, how this directly impacts sections primarily is through that formerly known young lawyer liaison to sections to now new member liaison to sections. And in some sections bylaws, there is reference to the young lawyer liaison. And so what we need to do after consulting with general counsel is we need to make sure that the sections bylaws that have a reference to the young lawyer liaison are in alignment now with the bar bylaws. And so what we have done as staff, because we wanted to make this as seamless and easy for you, is we have gone through all 29 sections bylaws to find any reference to the formerly now young lawyer liaison and redline them for you to new member liaison. And we will be sharing those with the respective section executive committees in the very near future. I will say not all sections have this in their bylaws, but we have about half of the sections that do. So please be on the lookout for emails from Carolyn with a copy of a redline version. And basically all you'll need to do is at your next upcoming executive committee meeting, approve these cleanup edits, and we will send them over to the Board of Governors for approval. Some things that are related, but not necessarily bylaws required, but could impact sections based off of this change is some sections have subcommittees, and some of those subcommittee names include the term young lawyer. You may want to consider now with this change from young lawyer to new member, renaming your subcommittees. There's also some sections that have budget line items for new lawyer outreach. And since we don't technically define new lawyer and we don't have a young lawyer definition anymore, you may want to consider updating that to new member outreach. Again, those are some considerations that you might want to talk through as an executive committee, but the bare minimum requirement is the cleanup with the sections bylaws to align with the bar bylaws. So again, next steps, please be on the lookout for emails from Carolyn in the very near future with a copy of a redline version of your section bylaws to clean up the young lawyer liaison to sections position, and be prepared to vote on that. I think handing it
It's
off to
back
Noah
to me.
now.
Yep.
Yes.
All right, I'm back. We're going to do a quick run through of the next year. Just some important dates that are coming up and some things to keep in mind as the year progresses. we are separating out the CLE portion of this meeting to its own primer. We're going to try this out this year, and I think it's going to be really helpful. The CLE program is going, or a department is going to be taking lead on that, and we're going to be involved as well. That is on November 19th. Then the legislative primer with Sanjay Walvakar is going to be on November 24th. We're going to be starting our section member marketing campaign. So this is when we're reaching out to the WSBA membership as a whole in certain ways to try and get better recruitment to your sections. We very much would appreciate your assistance with those. And there will be some emails coming out about that in the near future. Elections are going to be starting up as quick as you can, quick as you expect them to not be. They're going to be there so much faster. So we will be moving forward. You'll get the first notifications in January, and we'll progress from there. Keep an eye out for those. March and April is when the executive committee applications are going to be due. We got April is going to be the section leaders, the spring section leader meeting, which is kind of an update of what's going on. May and June is when the elections happen. July, August, we've got the budget due. So they're going to be going out a month or so before that, and then they're going to be due at the end of July or early August. So that whole process will be starting around that time. September is when those will go to the Board of Governors for review and approval. And then the end of the fiscal year is on September 30th. There's one thing I do want to also point out, much like the CLE primer, we're trying something else new. We're going to have a section elections nominating committee recruitment strategy drop-in meeting. I know that's a mouthful. You're going to get emails about it. Section chairs, just know that this is coming so that you can let your nominating committees know about this. We've got some really good information about this. So,
Thank you, Noah. Is that?
I think this one's me as well. So one other thing, as you're doing your duty here as executive committee members, if you ever have any questions and you can't get a hold of us in that particular moment, or you need something, or you can't remember something, you're afraid to reach out to us, check out the volunteer toolbox on the WSBA website. It has all sorts of information, fiscal information, expense reports. It'll have the videos for this meeting and the spring meeting posted so that you can go watch them, plus the materials. Those are both posted there. There's all sorts of information to help you do your job as executive committee members. So this is just another facet of things that we can that we have for you to help you with your job.
Great, thank you so much, Noah. And I'd like to just reiterate what Julianne said. The sections team, we're a great team. We work really well together. We enjoy each other, and we enjoy supporting the work that you do. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We really enjoy supporting our volunteers. So, and we're going to move on to this portion with Kevin Platchey, who's our Advancement Department Director, you heard from earlier today. Kevin's going to go through the procedures for purchase and service of alcohol, the update to our fiscal policy and alcohol policy and procedures. Kevin.
Thank you, Carolyn. Before I get started, I know there's some new folks here, so I should probably give you all some context about what the advancement department is and sort of how you all fit into it. So the advancement department is really the department where we house most of the member benefits and services that we provide to all of our members, which includes administration of the sections. So the sections team is within the advancement department. When we talk about CLE, the CLE team is also within the advancement department. We also have our new member services team within the advancement department, and we house the member wellness program, our professional responsibility program, which is where you may call for ethics advice on the ethics line, And we also have the practice management assistance program within advancement. So it's a pretty big portfolio of services, but they're all aimed at supporting members in their profession. So what I am here to talk about for this session is the WSBA procedures for purchase and service of alcohol. And I don't know if I'm aging myself here, but if any of you are from the 70s, the theme for this is really kind of what's old is new again. And it makes me think of bell bottoms, because bell bottoms used to be really popular. I wore them a lot in the 70s. They're coming back, right? So what's old is new again. And it's sort of like bell bottoms is what we're going to talk about today. So we can go to the next slide. So we're going to talk about the history of the fiscal policy. So regarding purchase of alcohol, and this is sort of what's old is new again, because prior to 2016, the sections could, per our fiscal policy, use their funds to purchase alcohol at qualifying WSBA events. So it's always been that WSBA general funds, and when we talk about general funds, we're talking about license fees, basically. It's always been that general funds can't be used to purchase alcohol. And those are mandatory license fees. And in many ways, and in a lot of areas, they're treated differently because of the mandatory nature of them. Up until 2016, sections could utilize their funds to purchase alcohol at qualifying events. And the reasoning kind of was that they're more voluntary dues. There's more of a voluntary nature to section dues. People can join a section or choose not to, so long as it was for events that qualified. So in 2016, the fiscal policy was changed. And many of you that have been around probably remember the sections policy work group that was brought into creation that really took a look at the fiscal policy. And I think the goal at that time was to really bring the sections into alignment with the broader WSBA policies. And that included the fiscal policies, which prohibited the use of WSBA funds to purchase alcohol. So what this change created in 2016 was the need, the practical on the ground thing that it changed is now sections, if they wanted alcohol at their events, had to go get sponsors, secure them, arrange with the sponsors to pay the venue directly, so that none of those funds, so no funds could flow through WSBA to a venue for the purchase of alcohol. So we can go to the next slide. And so after receiving some feedback from the sections, our Member Engagement Council, which is really a board council that is really designed to take input from the members to really be a link from the board to the Board of Governors to members. So they got feedback from sections. They actually, if you all remember, and some of you probably remember getting the survey, surveyed the section leaders to determine sort of their thoughts on the policy and whether they, liked it or wanted it to change. And ultimately, after getting that feedback, it became clear that sections would prefer to be able to use their funds to purchase alcohol for qualifying WSBA events. And so ultimately, the Member Engagement Council made a recommendation to the Board of Governors to change the fiscal policy pretty much back to what it was in 2016 to allow sections to purchase alcohol at qualifying events. And then at their July meeting, July of 2025, the Board of Governors did vote to change the fiscal policy to allow sections to utilize their funds to purchase alcohol. And it's at qualifying WSBA events. So we'll get into the next slide here and go over what the current fiscal policy now is after the change in July, and then get into a little bit more detail about what all that means. So where we stand now after July with the fiscal policy is that sections can utilize their funds to purchase alcohol at qualifying WSBA section events. And these last two sentences kind of define it in the policy. And so the events are section functions, which are defined as an event or meeting of the section membership that's open to all section members. And we'll get into more detail about what these really mean. And then a speaker's dinner where many speakers and volunteers are being honored. And so our next slide, we'll jump into what some of this means so you have a better idea. So what are section functions under the policy? So a qualifying section function for purposes of the fiscal policy is an event or meeting of the section membership that's open to all members. And essentially, to dig further into this, it's events or meetings that are hosted for the benefit of section members and that all members are given invitation to attend that event. So these types of events and meetings can include attendees who aren't section members, but they do have to be open to all section members and really designed for the benefit of them. Some examples would be a reception after a CLE that section members will go to network at. A networking event that's open to section members would be another one. But a caveat here, and just to kind of put a fine point on it, is the fact that a meeting's open to the public under the WSBA bylaws doesn't make it a qualifying function. So, for example, section executive committees would not be a qualifying section event for this. It's really got to be designed with the idea of benefiting section members and inviting them to be a substantial part of whatever the event is. So next slide. And then speaker's dinner is really interesting. We probably could have come up with a better name for this because a speaker's dinner does not mean speaker's dinner, really. It's much more broad than that. So a speaker's dinner is really an event that honors many speakers or volunteers who have contributed to section events, programs, or initiatives. And so, you know, we have to kind of get technical here because the policy uses the word many. So what does that mean? And many pretty much indicates a number greater than several, and several is kind of defined as 5 to 7. So where this sort of landed is to meet the threshold of many, an event would be considered qualifying if invitations have been extended to at least 8 honorees. So if you're inviting at least eight honorees to the event, then it's a qualifying event. And it can be a lunch, it can be a dinner. You know, this speaker's dinner, I think, was more of this what's old is new again. I think it's language that was used in the 2016 pre-2016 policy. Probably implicates RPPT section from what I remember, because you know they have a speaker's dinner that's attached to their mid-year every year, and they provide alcohol at that. But we just want to make sure everyone understands it's bigger and broader than a speaker's dinner. As long as you're recognizing volunteers who have contributed to your section and you invite at least 8 of them, it's a qualifying event. And the key word there is invite as well. It's not that the 8 have to attend, because you don't really know how many people are going to attend at the end of the day. So as long as you're getting invitations out to 8 or more, it's a qualifying event. So next slide. So these are kind of the events that it applies to. And just to kind of flesh this out, what that means is most of these events are going to be usually attached to something like a CLE, there may be a reception at mid-years. I know a lot of the sections have hosted bars at their events. Historically, we've had to go secure sponsors. The sponsors had to pay the venue directly, and that's just sort of how we logistically worked it. Under the change in the policy, you can still secure a sponsor. You're more than welcome to secure a sponsor. If you want to have the sponsor pay the venue directly, you can still do that. But this just frees it up so the sponsor could just pay WSBA directly, like pay the section directly, and then the bill is just paid through the section funds. So it just kind of frees up and simplifies the logistics is really kind of what the aim of this is. But here's to go over the procedures for serving alcohol, and this is at all WSBA functions. This isn't just at section functions. This is at our Board of Governors meetings. If committees are having these things, it applies to all our entities, including our governing body, which is the Board of Governors across the organization. So when alcohol is provided at any WSBA function, which includes section events, we have to ensure compliance with these requirements. So drinks must be served by a licensed and insured bartender, and the bartender requirement is part of the actual fiscal policy. And then we'll verify insurance with a minimum liquor liability of 1 million occurrence and 2 million aggregate. Before I get too much further into this, I'll give you the reasons why these requirements are in place. One is risk mitigation for the organization. So licensed bartender is sort of or a server, licensed bartender server at a venue is the one that's responsible for monitoring the level of drinking, cutting people off, that kind of thing. And then the insurance is pretty self-explanatory. We just want to make sure that there's some coverage of liability if there ever was something to occur. And then the other requirement is that any WSBA event where drinks are provided to attendees free of charge. So that's where a lot of times it's where we have a hosted bar where it's attached to a reception, but it could be at a speaker's dinner where you're recognizing volunteers, and it may be at a restaurant where you're just being served by a server. The idea is that we're limiting the free drinks to 2 per function. And so if we're giving out drink tickets for a bar, we would give 2 drink tickets per attendee. If you're doing it somewhere else, you just want to be mindful that the reimbursable drinks at a qualifying event would be limited to 2. And of course, people are free to purchase whatever drinks they might want beyond that. But from a perspective of the hosted drinks by WSBA, it's limited to 2. And then non-alcoholic beverages must be made available at any event where alcohol is provided. And we're really good at watching for that. That's from a well-being perspective. We want our members to feel welcome wherever they are, to have the choice of whatever they want to drink and not feel any undue pressure to engage with alcohol if that's not if that's not what they want to do, and give them plenty of options to engage otherwise. And then, of course, with these procedures, with the actual procedures, the Tara, who you heard from earlier, our executive director, does have the ability to provide exceptions to these. We understand that events are going to be different. There's going to be different circumstances with them. Maybe a vendor has a really good history and really good procedures in place for managing events, but their alcohol policy limit is 1 million instead of 2. Those are things we could take to get exceptions from Tara. So let's go on to the next slide, which is questions. So that kind of wraps up the policy itself. I think the big takeaway here is if you're planning, events that happen like receptions, those kind of things, know that you can now use your funds. Like a sponsor could just pay you directly, and we could pay the vendor through the section, through your section funds. But if we would still encourage you to find sponsors. It's always beneficial to do so. It's beneficial to your section. You certainly have the opportunity and ability to do that. But you also have the ability to use your funds in these qualifying events to actually pay directly if you so choose. So I'll stop there and just see if there's any questions. And if you do have things come up or you have questions, bring them to Carolyn. You can always reach out to me. I'll put my email address in the chat. But please just reach out if you need clarity or you have questions, and we're happy to help. Thank you very much.
Well, that concludes our presentation for today. I just want to open it up one more time. Are there any questions about anything we discussed about today? If you think of them later, as it was said before, you're welcome to email us. We'll put some emails in the chat. Let us know. We are here to help you with anything you need. Yeah. So thank you all for coming. We would really love if you could take a quick moment to fill out the survey that I just put in the chat. This is just to help us. It's I think 8 questions. It's real quick, and it just helps us create a better meeting. You know, these orientation meetings for you. It'll take just a couple minutes if you have a quick moment. I'd like to thank President-elect Kari Petrasik for making it here and representing her sections. I also would like to reiterate one more time how much we appreciate all that you do for us. And not just for us, for your members. We couldn't do this without you. And as it's been said, as I have just said, we're here to help you. We're here to assist you with any questions, with anything you may need to further your benefits to your members. So we're looking forward to collaborating with you to serve your members. Thank you so much and have a great afternoon.
Thank you, everybody.